Hello and welcome to the second episode of Loaded Sport, where we're going to be previewing this weekend's sport in action. Just before we get things underway, we've received a lot of positive feedback on the review show earlier on this week, the first episode that we did. Just want to say thank you for the positive feedback that we've received, but don't feel that your contribution to the podcast has to end there. We can now be found on Twitter at Loaded Sport, on Instagram loaded_sport as well, and a link to these pages can be found on www.loadedsport.co.uk, with written content being uploaded there often. We kick things off today by looking towards the final weekend of Premier League and Championship action before the World Cup gets underway. And joining me to discuss this are my two esteemed companions, Skin and Kemp. Hello, lads.
Hi, mate.
Hello, mate. I've never been called a companion before.
I know. I just had instant pictures of us three in a bed, tops off, cuddling up.
No. I had pictures of Lord of the Rings-esque walking through.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Companions. Yeah. Going down the merry way. But yeah, I'm good, lads. I'm good. Hope you are too.
If that doesn't give our listeners an insight into what our minds go to, then I don't know what will. But yeah,
one word and two very different outlooks from both of you for it.
What were you thinking when you said companions? Like all holding hands, skipping down a beach on a
friends,
during a lovely sunset,
linked arms, yeah.
Doctor Who, like I think he thought Doctor Who. Skid, you're definitely Billy Piper. By the way, just to quickly.
Is that a compliment?
Always. Just to quickly add a little bit of layering to this podcast. Obviously, episode 1 was episode 1. You know, there are things that we need to improve on. There are things that we need to do better. It was episode 1. But what I will say is thanks everybody for the feedback that I received from people that I know and from people that I don't know as well. But feedback from everybody is great. When we say Skin, because not everybody will realise this, we are actually referring to Dawson. And if you are as immature as us, you'll be able to put that one together for yourselves. Sorry, Adam.
I'll explain it now if you want, just to clear up anyone that might not.
I mean, is that like, playing to the crowd and making it out like they're a little bit dumb?
Mate, not necessarily. You've got to pop the boys in the truck, haven't you? So it simply comes down to this. Dawson, Dawskin, rhymes with foreskin, skin, and that has been my nickname for close to 10 years now, so that's literally it. So, yeah, when I say Skin, they mean me, but I'll be 80 years old and still getting called Skin, just for absolutely no other reason than Dawskin rhymes with foreskin. That is literally it.
Definitely making it to 80. Yeah. Go on then, Ag.
That's about as mature as I expected of an explanation from you as well. We'll start.
I can't help it. That's the explanation. I've not fucking made it up.
We'll look back towards the games that were played on Tuesday night in the EFL Cup. The third round is nearly all done and dusted. And we'll look at the first one, the upset from 22nd in League Two, Gillingham, away from home, drawing 1-1 in 90 minutes with Brentford, taking it all the way through extra time to the penalty shootout, and Gillingham winning 6-5. So Brentford, not the worst side in the Premier League. Actually one of those sides that you'd expect to do mid-table, maybe towards the top half. Ivan Toney scored the goal for them. They fielded a strong side. A lot of credit's got to go towards Gillingham.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you said, 22nd in League Two, and they've knocked out a Premier League side. What that does now for their confidence in the league is surely only going to be a positive thing, but it's the magic of the Cup, isn't it? I know it's normally associated with the FA Cup, that term, but any given Sunday and all these little sports terms that we like to use that mean that any single team can beat any other single team no matter where they're ranked or what they normally get up to when it's a one-shot knockout game. So, yeah, great to see. And, yeah, they'll be open now that can give them a bit of momentum in League Two and hopefully not end up getting relegated and joining your boys in non-league football for the next few years.
And at the time of this going out, Manchester United against Aston Villa is yet to take place. So your prediction ahead of that game: Aston Villa won quite convincingly at the weekend. It's now at Old Trafford.
You're going to completely ignore my comment about your boys still playing in non-league football for the next few years?
No, mate. I'm just going to put that to one side and not even rise to it.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, a cup game, it'll depend on sides, won't it? I imagine both teams will play a weakened side and certainly not the same 11 that played in the league on Sunday. So, yeah, EFL Cup is never the biggest priority for the bigger teams, but bigger teams have, seem to have won it these last few years. Can't remember the last time where a team outside the Big Six won it, which probably going to make myself silly, and someone will tell me it's been within the last 3 years or something. But
It was Leicester, wasn't it, a couple of years ago?
yeah, but they were still decent at that time. I wouldn't say that
Not a
was
Big
too much
Six
of a
side,
shock.
though, are they?
Yeah, maybe not so anymore.
Whoa, hang on a minute. Leicester, didn't they win?
it was FA Cup.
Oh, the FA Cup. The FA Cup.
Fucking Journo's back, look.
Guys.
Say whatever you want about that.
Fucking
You actually
Journo's
agreed
back.
with me. You agreed with me.
Just
You obviously
so
thought it
anybody-
as well.
Anybody who
Journo's
doesn't
back.
know Adam Marsden, this man went to university to study journalism.
Yeah, I didn't
And
study
I
like
didn't
FA
before you
Cup
try and
winners,
go,
did
you
I?
agreed with me.
Well, you did agree with me, and I didn't
You're meant
study
to be
FA
the man
Cup
with a
winners,
sheet of
did I?
paper.
I didn't agree. I'm not stupid.
No, you pointed it out. Well done.
But United Villa AFL Cup. To be quite honest, I couldn't really give less of a shit if I tried to be. To the point, because I spent enough time talking about that game on Sunday, or from Sunday, and I don't really want to spend too much of my evening talking about it again when about 80% of fans don't give a shit about that cup, as tough as that might sound.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, the last time a non-top six or big side won it, I think it was Swansea City 10 years ago.
There you go then.
Beat Bradford in the final.
Don't know what I'm talking about.
I think that's what it was, but I'm happy to be corrected by one of the more intelligent people, so nobody on this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Other than the EFL Cup, there were a couple of championship games, one of which saw Sheffield United lose by a goal to 0 against Rotherham. So just as you get excited about a great win against Burnley, you give it up against Rotherham. That goes the game in hand.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's
That's all he's got to say.
We need to say no more on
what else can I
that.
say? What else can I say? I mean, we didn't click. We looked poor. We looked just as poor against Rotherham as we looked good against Burnley. It's concerning. I saw a stat earlier that since Hecky took charge, before the last 9 games, I think we've conceded 8 goals since he took charge, and we've conceded, I think, 8 or 9 in the past 9 games, or something like that. So the stat basically is that for a long time we didn't concede many at home, and for the last few games we've conceded a few. And the magic of the championship, but unfortunately, when you're a supporter of a side wanting to get out of the championship, it's not always the most delightful league to play in. But hey, it's a long season. There's a break coming up. We go again.
Yes.
Have you ever thought that maybe you're just not as good as either you think you are or you hope you could be?
Well, no, because I think I actually said that we would finish in the playoffs. So, me personally, I think we are about where I thought we were going to be. But that's the hope of sport. Even if you don't think your team's going to do well, you hope and you pray that your team will do well, and you want to do well. For example, Adam Marsden's Chesterfield, they're never going to get out of the Vanarama National League, but Adam hopes they will.
It's the hope that kills you.
The
I'm
hope
just going
that
to have to
kills you.
bite on. Now, we're getting out of the National League. I won't worry about it. We're playing very good football at the moment. Skin, you saw us the weekend, didn't you, against Northampton in the FA Cup?
Did, mate. And I'll tell you what, if you'd have gone to that game not really having much knowledge of lower league football, and we're told that one team were sort of, top, third in National League at the moment, is it, Adam?
Third in the National League, yeah.
Yeah, playing third in League Two, you would have thought that Chesterfield were the League Two side. They were absolutely fantastic. I know the scoreline was only 1-0, but they played them off the park. Northampton Town hit the post in the first half, and to be honest, other than that, I can't really think of any clear-cut chances that they had. Some at Wrexham towards the start of the season. We all know about Wrexham and the publicity they're getting at the moment and the fan base that they're growing. And again, played them off the park. It just seems to be sort of the teams that you would expect them to beat. They seem to be struggling to beat, and they seem to be playing their best games against teams where you'd think they'd struggle, which in a sense is a good thing. But Notts County and Wrexham are above them at the minute and both playing very, very well. They're gonna have to start winning those easier, in quotation marks, games if they're really gonna be pushing for that automatic promotion
You
spot.
saw us
because
play
playoffs are
Wrexham, didn't
tough.
you, as well?
Yes,
You
mate.
saw
I
us
just said it
against
about
Wrexham.
30 seconds ago.
That's that 2-0 win as well back in August, I think it was.
Yes, mate. It was. They were phenomenal that day.
Interesting stat on Wrexham. Would you like to know their home record and their away record just before we move on?
Go on.
Yes, please.
Wrexham have played 9 games at home, won 9, drawn none, lost none.
I should hope so. But yeah,
Away from home, they've won 3, drawn 3, and lost 2. So it's definitely their away form letting them down. It's a strange one, but the National League, as we know, is very competitive. And if you are going to get out of there, Adam, I think it's going to be next year. I think this year, Notts County and Wrexham will just have too much. But you never know in the playoffs.
Toughest playoffs in the world, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it's up there. I think it all depends on what happens in January, depending on any transfers that happen, because Notts County have got a goal scorer that I think will overtake Tshimanga on the requested list for most Championship sides. I know Tshimanga was set to go to Birmingham, but that fell through at the last moment. So
he's a Southend boy.
Yeah, I think that's where
that's going to go over your head. Don't worry.
It did.
It means he's from Southend, Adam.
It doesn't, but okay.
Moving on towards Saturday, the final games of the Premier League and the Championship before the World Cup starts. We'll be talking at length before the World Cup starts next week. So we'll look towards the Premier League and the final games for some of these sides to really get, well, I say momentum, but some of the players to really give a last-ditch reason as to why they should be called up to their country for the World Cup. Man City against Brentford, the early kickoff. Bournemouth, Everton. Liverpool, Southampton. Notts Forest, Crystal Palace. Tottenham, Leeds. West Ham, Leicester. Newcastle, Chelsea. And Wolves, Arsenal. Any games that really shout out for you there that there's good opportunities for players to go out there and prove why they should be on the plane to Qatar?
I don't think so. I think Gareth Southgate has made up his mind. I think Gareth Southgate's made up his mind maybe a year ago.
I think the squad's announced tomorrow, isn't it? So I think it's
to
more.
Me, and again, I'm not the biggest fan of Gareth Southgate. Whether that be,
Joking, aren't you?
Well, yeah, there you go. And anybody obviously knows my football views knows that I'm not the biggest fan of Gareth Southgate. But what you can say about him is, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, is he's very loyal to the players that he's taken before. And I don't think personally any performances will sway his opinion. If you look at Harry Maguire, he's not performed, and at the end of the day, Southgate will still take him. So you look at that, and that's what you see from Harry Maguire's perspective with poor form. You look at someone like James Maddison, who's not been able to get in. Is Gareth Southgate going to take that player based on his recent performances or not? I doubt it, but I'm hoping to be proved wrong by Mr. Southgate for once.
I can see if Maddison isn't in the starting 11, fine, because for whatever reason it's fine. But if he is not in that squad, like he has not been in the majority of the last few squads, it is criminal.
I agree, but again, I also don't think Gareth Southgate is a great manager, and I don't think he picks the best sides or the best starting 11s in a lot of the games and sets up the right way. But if he wins the World Cup and he brings it home, then I can't say that he's not doing a good job. But we'll have to see when the squad gets announced tomorrow.
Adam, what's your thoughts? Because you're a big advocate of it's coming home, and no matter what, and no matter the result, and no matter the team, it's coming home, and all fair enough. But genuinely, fair enough, we don't need to go into a 5-10 minute discussion because we've got the World Cup preview coming up next week, which I'm sure we'll talk about in length, especially when we know the squad. But just sort of very briefly, what do you think of sort of the current England setup in terms of the favoured players? It's always been a thing. Don't favour the players, play the players that are in form. And we started to look like we were coming away from that. And this last sort of 6 to 12 months, it seems like we fell back into that. What's your thoughts?
You know exactly why I'm a big advocate for it's coming home, and I have to say that on a serious note, I do agree with a lot of what Kemp says, that with Gareth Southgate, it's too defensive-minded. You've got to go out there and attack some of these teams from the off and make sure that you're controlling the game quite well. I think what he's done is we started to pick players that were in form, but what he's done is he's kept those same players as if they are still in form, and some of them have dropped off form, like you've mentioned before, Maguire, Pickford. Last season, Pickford was fighting until the very last game of the season with Everton to be relegated or not, and then he continued to get the number 1 shirt for England. And whilst his form hasn't been the worst for England, I think there's players out there that should have been called up in his place, starting in his place. I mean, Henderson had a fantastic season. Ramsdale, another player that's had a very good season last year. I think both of them, just like that, were clear choices to go above Pickford. For me, I'd still stand by Ramsdale, Henderson and Pope as the 3 goalkeepers that I'd take to the World Cup. Like you say, we'll hear more about that next week, but for me, I've got to say that we are too defensive, and the setup at the moment is he's got to the semi-final of the World Cup, he got to the final of the Euros. We used players that got us there, but he's stuck by those players, like you say, with the loyalty that is shown towards those players. It's not necessarily needed. They've lost form. We now need to pick players that, in their place, have gained form, if that makes sense.
The thing is, though, you mentioned Pickford there. Pickford has actually been one of the players that I agree with keeping loyal to, because even though he does look a bit like a T-Rex for Everton, he actually plays really well for England. So, yes, there is a problem, in my opinion, with players like Maguire that haven't featured under Ten Hag at all, and they haven't deserved to feature under Ten Hag, even when Varane got injured. I think that Pickford deserves it, because every time he puts on an England shirt, he's brilliant.
But
you know?
But
aren't
you going against Maguire's brilliant for England as well. So just because he's not playing for United.
But that's the thing. For some reason, and I'm probably wrong in this, but when I think of Maguire, I think of he's god-awful and has been god-awful for Manchester United for quite a long time. When I see Pickford, I think, he's not great, is he? But then when he puts on an England shirt, it's like, wow. But I don't know whether Maguire's level of shitness has made me think, no matter what he does or no matter how well he's done for England before, we just can't take him because he's that shit. I don't know. I don't know whether it's that, the price tag, I don't know. But that's my thoughts on that. And I don't know if you agree with that or not. Probably not. But
let's save it for the World Cup preview, shall we? Because 5 or 10 minutes ago, I said let's not spend 5 or 10 minutes on this and save it for next week. So let's move on to the task at hand, which is previewing this weekend.
Good point. And also, just to mention on that, we have got a World Cup preview show that Dawson's just mentioned coming next week. It will be a dedicated podcast to the World Cup, and I'm sure Adam will have some fantastic questions for us all. So stay tuned for that one. Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. One player that is going to be missing out from the World Cup, which surprises a lot of people, is Erling Haaland. He goes up against a Brentford side that have just lost, as we mentioned yesterday, to 22nd place in League Two, Gillingham. It's just becoming natural now for Erling Haaland to score goals, isn't it? No matter, I remember I went on a last man standing last weekend. I put Manchester City down to win. I saw at half time that it was 1-1, and I had complete faith that despite the fact that Haaland was on the bench, he would come on and he would score. And all right, one got disallowed, but he still scored a 95th minute penalty that managed to keep me within last man standing and win the game for Man City. We spoke earlier on in the week about how it seems to be a case of that's a Champions sort of way of playing where they do grind out them sort of results, but as long as they've got Erling Haaland, it just seems natural that they're going to go on and win, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've got a test this weekend. Chelsea are a bit of a funny team. Oh, sorry, that's in the Carabao Cup, isn't it? Yeah. Who have they got this week?
Brentford.
Brentford this weekend. You just mentioned. Yeah, I'm high.
Are you listening?
No, I'm high. Brentford this weekend. They've just obviously been dumped out by Gillingham, so they might want to come back and prove a point. Haaland is a bit of a cheat code, as we all have probably seen and are aware. I think he himself and City are a little bit of a different prospect than they were last year. Last year, they were just unbelievable, played fantastic football, played everybody off the park. But for me, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, Dawson, they seem a bit more gritty this year. They seem as though they're grinding out results at times. And even if they're not creating loads and loads of chances and nearly getting in there and just missing opportunities and not quite getting it, they seem to be really grinding it out, getting the result when it matters, and playing more effective football rather than the beautiful football they probably played last year. I don't know if I'm talking shit there, Dawson, or...
I'll be honest, mate, I'm just thinking about you grinding on me, but yeah, to your point, I completely agree, mate. They just, they seem to want to battle for it a little bit more. I really couldn't say what that's down to, because it's not like they've made big changes. They used to, win games where they were 75% possession and playing teams off the park, and they are still doing that, but yeah, there seem to be a few more closer victories, but again, it's just a sign of the talent that they've got that they're still winning those games. So, yeah, they should win easily. If you're Brentford coming off of that defeat last night, I can think of a hell of a lot more games I'd rather be having next than Man City away. So, yeah, Erling Haaland, he's got a break coming up with the World Cup coming up, so he might go balls to the wall all out and then put his feet up for a month in a jacuzzi somewhere. So, yeah, I expect at least a 3-goal win for City.
Here's a question, though. Here's a question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Dawson. I've just mentioned there, I've made a bit of a mistake doing it, but I believe, I'm just going to check with Adam on this one before I do talk about it. They have got Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, right?
Is that before the World Cup, is it? Is that next week?
I assume so, if it's in the
They've
next round
got
of the Carabao
them
Cup.
today.
Yeah.
Oh, they got tonight. Fair enough.
Tonight.
Yeah,
Don't worry about them,
so they've got Chelsea in the Carabao Cup today at 8 p.m. and then they've got Brentford at the weekend. So Dawson, I'll start with you. If you've got Chelsea at home, which is again not an easy game, they're not going to be a pushover regardless because it's Chelsea. Do they start the first team against Chelsea and hope to get through in the Carabao Cup, or do they rest a few players and try and keep pace with Arsenal at the top of the league? What do you think is most important for City at the moment?
I think it's very difficult to assess that based upon the fact that there's going to be a break for the World Cup, which means there's going to be an extra month of fixtures where fixture congestion is going to come in, so the approach might be different to a regular season. If it's me, I'm putting out a strong side. You want to obviously get as far as you can in these cup competitions. Same with, obviously, you want to be performing well in the league. But the thing with Man City that we've picked up on a few times is they've got a lot of squad depth, so you can by all means start Erling Haaland today, give him the 70 minutes that he needs, maybe with the surrounding cast that he's got, De Bruyne in there as well, Rodri, moving forward, those sort of players, I think they could still get a very good result against Chelsea, who, let's be fair, aren't really performing that well at all. So I think that they're just leaking goals at the moment, or leaking chances, should I say, defensively. And a side like Man City, you start Haaland, by half-time I think City could be 2 or 3 goals up. And then towards the 65th minute, you could maybe rest Haaland, swap it around, let Alvarez play, and then on Saturday against Brentford, maybe start Alvarez, and half-time, maybe 50 minutes in, if you need to, bring Haaland on. If not, give him the rest.
Dawson, do you agree?
I'm sat here with the most confused look on my face, which in the future when we start doing video podcasts, you'll be able to see. But have I just listened to an answer to a question that compared or asked what is more of a priority, the EFL Cup or the Premier League?
No. You haven't.
I feel like I have.
No,
I'm sure you've just asked, what's the priority?
No, so my question is, like, where is Pep's focus for this week? Because
where do you think?
Hang on. You've got Chelsea in Carabao Cup, right? Chelsea aren't going to be a pushover, right? So what do? Do you go...
Who gives a fuck? It's in the EFL Cup.
You half an hour ago, the magic of the cup.
But that's fine. That's fine for Gillingham beating a fucking Brentford. But do City give a shit about the EFL Cup?
Well, they've won it 3 times in the past 4 years.
Well done. But you asked the question. You didn't ask, do they care about the EFL Cup? Do you think that... Where's the focus? EFL Cup or the Premier League? Where do you fucking think?
So do they care about the EFL Cup then?
Yes,
I think it's more the sides that they face, though, isn't it? I think it's more the sides that they face. They're facing Chelsea in the EFL Cup and Brentford. So,
but he said, where's his focus?
Yeah, so more of like
Chelsea or Brentford.
For lineup.
Doesn't matter. Premier League, whoever they're playing, is more of a focus than the EFL Cup, whoever they're playing. Every single day of the week. And if you want to even spend any more time discussing that or hypothesizing or spreading your opinions of what you think's in Pep's head, of he thinking, I've got EFL Cup tonight, I'm going to put my, I'm not too worried about Saturday. It's fucking Premier League.
You're going to put your suit on?
No, I'm going to put strong side out, and I'm fucking tripped over myself because I'm that mad that we've just spent 5 minutes comparing the EFL Cup just because they're playing Chelsea against the Premier League, just because they're playing Brentford. Don't matter. It's not about the team. It's about the competition. Come on, lads.
So how would you approach it?
Just fucking play a second string side tonight with a couple of experienced players in there, and you go balls to the wall on Saturday. Of course you do. You've got Arsenal above them. They've dropped a couple of points against teams that they shouldn't do. They've got to focus on that. If they get knocked out tonight, who gives a fuck in the grand scheme of things?
And do you know what's funny is that I honestly think Pep will start a strong side tonight.
And he might, and it's fine. But we're sat here.
Oh, it's all right as long as you say it's fine. If you're listening to this, Dawson says it's fine.
He's
for you
got
to
my
feel the
sign off.
strong
He's got my
side.
approval.
Right, fuck that, Adam. Let's move on.
Yes, so Manchester City, like you say, on Saturday against Brentford. That's the early kickoff. The late kickoff at 7:45 is Wolves against Arsenal. By this point, Arsenal could, of course, be second in the Premier League, depending on how Man City approach that. With Arsenal performing very well in the Premier League, again, you're going to be starting a very strong side, but you've always got that worry of upcoming towards the World Cup. You don't want to tie them out before they go into one of them competitions, that when they come back, you're still going to have that sort of worry for some of these players, if that makes sense. So the likes of Saliba, Jesus, Xhaka as well, them sort of players, Saka is another one that are going off to the World Cup. You've got to be careful that they're going into this sort of big competition, and the sides that the nations that they play for are expected to get quite far. So I think with Brazil, there's certainly an expectation that they're going to be in the latter stages of the tournament. So you've got to be careful not to overuse them, if that makes sense. I know club, for Arsenal, obviously for Arteta, it'll be a case of club will come before country on this basis. But then when they come back off the World Cup, there isn't much of a gap there, is there, between when they get back and when they're expected to play again. So the fixture congestion is ridiculous for some of these players. How do you think Arsenal have to prepare themselves for playing up against Wolves, who, if I'm not mistaken, have very limited players going to the World Cup?
Well, for me, you just summed it up there when you mentioned club over country for Arteta. And I think Arteta at this point in time, they've had a better start than everybody expected them to have. I think Arteta included. I think if you'd have said to Arteta at the start of the season, you're going to be top of the Premier League by the time they go to the World Cup, I think he'd have absolutely snapped your hand off and thanked you for the pleasure. You mentioned there about the players that are going to the World Cup for Arsenal. You look at the players that are just in the Brazil side, forwards especially. You've got Gabriel Jesus, you've got Gabriel Martinelli, you've got the other Gabriel as well, I think, is going in defence. And they've got a real strong squad that are playing really well, but that also means in a World Cup season, you're going to get called up to the World Cup as well. So I think Arteta, personally, I think he's going to play the strongest possible side he can to make sure that they go into that World Cup break top of the league and flying high. And he's got to hope and pray that if they do get far in the tournament, a few of the international teams that his players play for, like I say, especially Brazil more than anybody else, he'll be sat there with his fingers and his toes crossed to make sure that they come back fit and healthy. I don't know if you agree with that, Dawson, that hypothesis, or
yeah. Why should an Arteta or any single manager at any single club across Europe or even the world have in the back of their mind that the World Cup starts next week? Their job is to make sure that their club is as successful as possible. It's not their fault that, due to reasons that we'll get into next week, no doubt, a World Cup is starting in a week's time and they're still playing football, and they're going to have to return to football on Boxing Day, just over a week after the World Cup final. It's club over country at this point. Some players themselves on pitch might not go 100%, might have in the back of the mind that they might not go into a certain tackle that they might have done before or anything like that. Sadio Mane is missing the World Cup, which again we'll get into next week. But for certain players, I'm sure that will be a little niggle in the back of their mind that this is the last opportunity to get injured and potentially miss the World Cup. But as a manager who's in charge of the team, you can't have that in the back of your mind. Arsenal can't afford to drop points this weekend because Arteta's worrying whether or not 3, 4, 5 of his players might get a little bit of a niggle and miss the World Cup. He's got to go all out.
Okay, so we've spoken about how Man City are likely to approach the game against Chelsea tonight. How do you think Chelsea are likely to approach the game against Man City? They're out of form. They've not won in the last 4 games in the Premier League, including defeat to Brighton and Arsenal, draws with Brentford and Man United. On Saturday, they go up against Newcastle. Arguably, their game's tougher, or unarguably, I'd say, actually. Their game's tougher than the one that Man City have got on Saturday.
Game of the weekend for me, that Newcastle-Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Chelsea, to be quite honest, and I do agree with Dawson that obviously the Premier League's more important than the Carabao Cup, but I think with Graham Potter at the minute, I think he'll take it. I think he'll take a win. I think in that Chelsea dressing room, they just need a little bit of a morale boost, and I think if you go to the Etihad, no matter what competition you're in, whether it's the EFL Cup or the Johnstone's Paint Trophy, I think if you go to the Etihad and you get a win, especially against this Pep side, no matter who he fields, I think you come away from that with a lot of momentum, and I think he'll take that into the Newcastle game. But the problem that they've got after that is that even if they do come out with a win and they get that great momentum against Newcastle, they're not playing again for over a month because of the World Cup. So it swings and roundabouts. But me personally, with Chelsea's fixture tonight and then the one at the weekend, I think Graham Potter's going to have to risk it a little bit and try and pick up a result against City tonight to hopefully take some momentum into the weekend, Dawson.
Yeah, just very quickly, I was just having a quick scroll through the rest of the games and things like that. They've actually released the lineups for tonight, and Potter's playing kids. So
is he?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking, mate.
Amazing.
But yeah, Newcastle, Chelsea. We'll not spend too much more time speaking about tonight. Newcastle, Chelsea for me is the game of the weekend. Massive, massive test for Newcastle in terms of where they stand against those big teams. They drew at United recently at Old Trafford. They conceded very, very late against Liverpool and were on the verge of taking a point there. So far they have played well against big teams, beat Tottenham away as well recently. This is a big test for them, and for me that's box office football because, like you said, Adam, Chelsea not in the best of form, Newcastle, one of the form teams in European football as it stands. There's going to be a lot of people starting to talk about Newcastle as a top 4 side if they come away this weekend with 3 points and go into the World Cup, sitting pretty around sort of where Man City are.
So taking that into account then, who do you think it's a bigger game for, Newcastle or Chelsea?
Newcastle, 100%.
Kemp, would you agree with that?
It depends from what perspective you're looking at it, because I think, yes, it's massive for Newcastle. It's huge. They've had an unbelievable start. I think one of you guys mentioned that they were your surprise team of the season, and I can't really disagree. I think I mentioned Arsenal, and obviously for obvious reasons, but Newcastle have obviously they've defied all expectations so far this season, and credit has to go to the side and to Eddie Howe. But you've also got to look at it from a Chelsea perspective in the sense that they are desperately looking for some momentum. I think this season, depending on the ownership and how trigger happy they are, and they got rid of Tuchel very quickly. But I think this season, Potter has got a bit of a free hit. As long as they finish sort of top 6, top 7, maybe top 8, I think they'll stick with him.
Maybe mid-table.
Maybe mid-table.
Maybe if they survive relegation.
Maybe championship. But the point is that I think he's got a bit of a free hit to make, to bring his philosophy into Chelsea and to really give it a go next season. But Graham Potter himself and the players will really want that little momentum boost just before they go off to the World Cup, so that when they are back from Qatar, they can all sit down in the dressing room and say, hey, lads, just before we went, no matter how your World Cups went, we just beat Newcastle. They were the form team. They're the team that everybody's talking about, and we beat them. That's good momentum, hopefully, for them to take forward. But again, the World Cup in between, so it's difficult.
It's a fucking shambles, World Cup being in November and December, innit? But again, we'll get into it next week. But the more I think about it, the more it's baffling me.
Makes it very difficult to keep the momentum going, like we've all mentioned so far. Just before we do sum up for football for the preview show this week, a lock of the week from both of you. So a player, a goal scorer that you think from any of the games set to take place either Saturday or Sunday. On this one, Skin, we'll start with you.
So my team that is the lock of the week, I'm going to have to go Ipswich at home to Cheltenham. Cheltenham got knocked out of the FA Cup last weekend to the lowest ranked team in the second round draw at Alvechurch, and they were playing at home as well. Ipswich are in phenomenal form at the minute, second in League One and turning their Portman Road, I was trying to think of a home ground then, into a bit of a fortress. So yeah, team of the week or lock of the week for the team is Ipswich. Lock of the week for anytime scorer, I'm going to go Paul Mullen for Wrexham away to Wealdstone. He's been an absolutely sensational form for Wrexham. He was doing very well last season. He's been doing very well for a couple of seasons, and he can't seem to not score at the moment. So yeah, Ipswich is my lock of the week for the team, and Paul Mullen to score for Wrexham for my play to score.
Okay, Kemp?
Lock of the week, I think, for me this week, I'll have to say Liverpool, as much as it pains me. They have been struggling this season. It's quite obvious for everybody to see. But I think in the past few games, I think they've sort of shown more glimpses of their old selves, especially players like Mo Salah, who seem to have disappeared towards the back end of last season and maybe at the start of this one, they're really starting to look like they're sort of turning the ship around a little bit. And it's unfortunate for them, as like we've said, you're going to lose momentum. But I think with Southampton, letting Hasenhüttl go, whether it'll probably be a caretaker at this point. I know they're looking at getting Nathan Jones in, I think, for the role. But it won't be in situ on Saturday, and it's likely to be taking place after the World Cup. So, lock of the week for me, Liverpool. And I think, to be fair, it's a very, very boring prediction. But Mo Salah for goal scorer and, for any time scorer, I think Mo Salah might run rampant, this weekend. So I'm going Liverpool and Mo Salah rather boringly. Adam?
I'm going to go with Blackburn. I've taken a big risk on this because on Sunday, Blackburn make the trip to Turf Moor to play Burnley as second in the Championship meets first. With a win, Blackburn can go top, and they've lost just one in the last 6 games. We all know what happened to Burnley at the weekend. Despite leading at half-time, went on to a 5-2 defeat against Sheffield United. So for me, I think Blackburn and the fact that they can go into the World Cup break as the top of the Championship, I think is enough momentum to see them a little bit further through as well. So I'm going to go with Blackburn to beat Burnley. As for goal scorer, I'm trying to avoid the typical boring prediction of going for someone like Haaland or for Salah that's kind of expected. So I'm going to go for Wilfried Zaha for Crystal Palace away against Notts Forest. Despite being bottom, I think Forest have been very unlucky to have conceded the amount of goals they have. With Henderson's sort of performances as well, I think a side like Crystal Palace is going to struggle to create too many chances against them. So I think it's a bit of an outlandish claim, but I think that Zaha is going to go in and get a goal against Nottingham Forest. So that's my lock of the week. Just one extra. Pardon? Hackett? Oh, Backett. Right, I didn't know what you said.
Nathaniel Hackett, mate. We're not on the NFL yet, mate. Come on.
Oh, we'll move on to that in a moment then. One last one, with a couple of minutes left to go. Wildcard team. So, from a fixture this weekend, a side that you think is going to upset the odds anywhere in the Football League. Yes, I'll let you have the National League as well, Skin, if you wanted.
Thanks, I appreciate that, mate. You know what? I'm going to go Middlesbrough away at Norwich. They've got a massive win this week. Michael Carrick's just taken over. There's a lot of memes on Twitter about the kind of football they're playing, prime Barcelona. Pep Guardiola only owns one book, and it's Michael Carrick's autobiography and all that kind of stuff. Norwich, as we know, very, very good Championship team. Very good at Carrow Road as well. But if we're going for wild card, I'll give Middlesbrough a shout-out to beat Norwich this weekend.
Me personally, I'm going to go for Leeds away at Tottenham, because I think Jesse Marsh has really shown some character and some grit.
Ted Lasso.
Yeah, Ted Lasso. Yeah, he wishes. He wishes.
We all
yeah,
wish.
But I mean, unbelievable game at the weekend. If anybody saw, with the I think they came from, what is it, 3-1 down or 3-2? They won
3-1 down.
Essentially. They won 4-3 in the dying embers of the game, and you saw what it meant to him. You saw what it meant to the fans, and my picks and my locks of the week are Liverpool and Leeds this week, which doesn't feel great, but it is what it is. But I think he's definitely got a little bit of momentum behind him now, and I think he was really struggling at one point. But fingers crossed this weekend for him and for Leeds United, they can go to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and cause a bit of a ruckus, because Tottenham don't look brilliant at the moment. So for me, I think upset of the week, and I absolutely will not back this, and I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. But I think Leeds away at Tottenham. Adam?
I'm gonna go with Southampton away against Liverpool. I think it's a bizarre claim, but I feel it could just happen. Liverpool do have that bit about them where if they have turned the corner, fair enough, this is going to be a clear Liverpool win by 4, 5, maybe even 6 goals. If not, then I think Southampton have in a side that a very good chance of getting something out of the game. Even if it's just a point, I'm sure they'd take that away at Anfield, considering the fact that they're still in relegation. But I'm going to go with Southampton against Liverpool. I do think it's a bit of a bizarre claim, but there we go. That's what it's there for. In just a few moments' time, we are going to be talking NFL, previewing Week 10 action, including the Seahawks against the Bucks, the first game to take place in Munich. Welcome back to the Loaded Sport preview show. We're now going to look towards Week 10 in the NFL season. Kicking things off on Thursday night is the Panthers against the Falcons, and I can't think of a more boring game to kick off Week 10.
Tell you what, they've had a good run of it this year with Thursday Night Football, and the Amazon have come in, spent a fuckload of money on it, spending, 44 million a game on average, is it? I might have got that wrong and misremembered what the stat is, but they aren't paying for some bad matchups this season. And the less we spend talking about it, probably the better. Carolina clearly building for the future, trading away CMC, turned down trade requests for DJ Moore and Brian Burns at trade deadline, but yeah, I think Falcons will win, but I can't see it being an exciting game with the highlights the next day being that long. I don't know what either of you two think.
For me, Panthers, Falcons, again, I can't think of many more boring games on the schedule. Are the Panthers going to tank for a high draft pick? I mean, I suppose PJ Walker's looked a little bit excited. He's been a little bit of a surprising element of the Panthers team so far. I don't know if you'll agree with that, but yeah, there are very few exciting sparks in a very boring game, Adam.
Yeah, I think PJ Walker's really been a standout performer for them. I don't know if he was given the idea that maybe he was going to be the starter after Bridgewater left last year, and obviously Baker then came in and took that spot from him. I think he's given a very good account of himself until, of course, he was removed at the weekend, and I believe it was up against the Browns that then Baker went and threw. Was it 2 touchdowns that Baker threw in the second half when PJ Walker had been removed from the game? So I don't know whether they're going to stick with Baker or whether they're going to go with PJ Walker. I think Walker's given himself a very good reason why he could be a starter there, but I think it's just one of them things, isn't it? They paid a fair bit to get Baker there. They're going to stick with him, aren't they, and see just what they can do, especially if they're going into a rebuild. I mean, a loss isn't going to be the end of it for them, is it?
No. And I think there have been reports over the past couple of days that they are thinking about sticking with PJ Walker. So if you are going to go with a more of a wild card, see what the kid can do, then that's what they need to do. And if they are looking at that little bit of a rebuild and see what they've got and see what pieces they need to add and what pieces they need to take away, they need to get as many people suited up as possible so they've got a good idea as to what they need next season. Also, if you, I mean, like we just mentioned that it's a boring game, but we have spent a couple of minutes talking about it, so it can't be that bad.
Well, you've just brought me back into the conversation, mate, because I completely switched off. So if you say my name was to get an answer to a question you've just asked me, I have fucking no idea what you said.
Fair enough then, Adam. Take it away for the next game. Fuck it.
With the Falcons, if they win, they can go to the top of the NFC South heading into the weekend. With a win, they can go 2.5 and heading into the weekend as top of the NFC South. That is until, at the very least, the Bucs take on the Seahawks on Sunday in Germany at 2:30. And I think, except for when I saw Brady do that drive at the final play against the Rams, I actually had a fair bit of confidence going into this game. Pre-season, when I saw it, I thought there's absolutely no chance it's a given loss.
But I've got a little bit of confidence. I don't feel too bad about it.
Well, no, I've got a bit of confidence about it this time. I think we could be going to 7-3 heading into our bye week. I think there's a very realistic chance now that with the way the defense is playing and the way that Geno stepped up as well, I can't see why we can't beat the Bucs. I think I'd probably put us as favourites heading into it, considering how bad the Bucs offense seems to have been. It's kind of a given at the minute for me. I don't know if you two agree.
Gun to your head, make your prediction. Who wins?
Go Hawks.
Interesting. ESPN has 83% back in the Bucs, which I think you've still got to, even though Seahawks 6-3, Bucs are 4-5. But as you said, that final drive against the Rams, you would assume that at some point the wheels will start to fall off a little bit for the Seahawks. Pete Carroll's been in the news today. He's took a couple of shots at Russell Wilson, subtly and not directly, but talking about Geno's going off the wristband. He's listening. He's not resisting what they're trying to do with the team, and that's why they're doing so well, or much better than what people expected. It's obviously a bit of a subtle dig at Russ in terms of how he might have wanted to take control of the team or not quite have been open to coach's suggestions and things like that. So I think there were a lot of raised eyebrows when Geno got announced as the starter in pre-season, but 9 games in, they're 6-3, and Adam's confident that they're going to play the Bucs and they're going to win the game. So that says a lot about the positive impact he's had on that team. 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. You can't really really argue too much with that, and you can't be unhappy with it, can you? So I think Bucks win personally, but it should be a decent game. They'll be looking to entertain the fans in Germany.
Yeah, I think I agree. Buccaneers are going to come away with the victory on that one. Come away with the victory, as Alex Wright, the German, would say. I think
After a little boogie.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers are going to have enough, but the Seattle Seahawks are very, very well organised defensively. So it's not going to be a walk in the park for Brady, and I do think he's going to have to come out with some Tom Brady magic to pull the game away. But I think it's going to be an interesting game, Adam.
Just a quick one on what Skin mentioned then about Pete Carroll taking a shot at Russell Wilson. Was it a shot at Russell Wilson? It's the same as what people... Anytime Russell Wilson's done a press conference, they've looked into it as he's taken a shot at the Seahawks. Anytime Pete Carroll's made a comment at all about a quarterback or about anything that's gone on with the Seahawks, like with Tyler Lockett actually as well the other day, it seems to be that everyone's just taking shots at Russell Wilson. Is it just looking too much into it, don't you think?
Okay, can I just give 2 quotes on this?
Yeah.
And then you can answer your own question. If you don't mind, Kem, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So the 2 quotes of this, which led me to say what I said, and again, Adam, I'll read them, and then you decide if you think they are a shot at Russ or not. So the first one is, if you notice, Gino's going off the wristband, and that's a big help. It smoothed things out, sped things up, cleaned things up, and that's part of it too. We never did that before. There was resistance to that, so we didn't do that before. That's the first quote. Second quote, when Shane says something to Gino, he's not doubting it. He's just going with it. So there's a real immediate flow, and that accelerates all the process. So you tell me, and you answer your own question.
I feel there may be shots at Russell Wilson.
There we go.
I've been convinced. Right, we'll move on to the Bears against Lions. The first of the 6 o'clock games on Sunday. 2 sides that, the Lions look like they're constantly rebuilding, but the players just don't seem to be moving things forward for them, whereas the Bears, for the, 8th consecutive year, are in a rebuild.
Yeah.
8th or 8th decade.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields, to be honest, I think that game last week really will have done him a great deal, dealt him a great deal of confidence. I think coming up against the Detroit Lions is going to be a fairly difficult test for... Fairly difficult test for him, but I think he'll come through with flying colours, and I do think the Chicago Bears are going to come through with that one. I think it's team rebuild versus team rebuild, isn't it? So you never know, any given Sunday, as we've said, but I think the Bears come out on that one, Dawson.
I think high-scoring game, entertaining for the neutral, not so entertaining for Tina. It can't be good for anyone's blood pressure to be a Bears fan, but they have been very impressive these last few weeks, and Fields starting to look like the kind of player that he was at my college team, Ohio State. Yeah, he looks like he's morphing into a little bit of a Lamar Jackson regen, but there's a long way to go in his career, and he's got to do it a lot more consistently before he starts getting compared to that level of player. Lions, we spoke about them recently, Adam. They can't get the job done. They're very entertaining. They're scoring a lot of points for the most part, but they can't seal the deal. Beat Packers at the weekend. Is that the bit of momentum, that bit of confidence that they need? Who knows? But like I said, I can't really pick a winner on that. Gun to my head, I'll actually go Lions, but I do think it'll be a good game for the neutral.
I think it's going to be a Lions win. Again, a high-scoring game, or at least for the Lions, I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and the Lions will get their 3rd win of the season. Up next, the Dolphins against the Browns. Tyreek Hill, of course, setting the record for the quickest player to get 1,000 receiving yards within a season, having done it by week 9. Jalen Waddle isn't too far behind, but they're up against the Browns that are preparing, potentially, for the return of Deshaun Watson to the NFL. I believe that is in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, week 13.
Week 13, yeah, he's expected back. Naturally, he's going to start over Brissett, but the Dolphins, I think, for this game, for me, the Dolphins are going to win it. It's so difficult to be able to stop them 2 wide receivers at the moment, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and everybody was a bit unsure before the season started when Tyreek said that Tua is the best player who's ever had throw at him, the best quarterback to ever throw the ball to him, and considering the fact that the other player in the NFL was Patrick Mahomes, I think that's a very big statement. And Tua's make or break year that a lot of people were calling it, he's coming out showing exactly what he's all about, and I think the Dolphins will have more than enough to see off the Browns quite convincingly. I don't know about you, Skin?
No, I completely agree, mate. Not much more to say or disagree with what you just said there. I think Dolphins should win relatively easily. I'll go by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know I agree. I'm going to go with Miami Dolphins beating the Cleveland Browns fairly handily. I think the biggest thing about the Miami Dolphins this season is that they've got at Ben Musgrove a triple threat of offensive weapons. You know, Tua can move; he can move himself, and when you've got two receivers that he's got, the receiving core that he's got, who do you cover? Who do you double team? Who do you put man coverage on? It's such a difficult offense to stop, and I don't think the Cleveland Browns have got the facilities to stop it, unfortunately, Adam.
Up next, Titans against Broncos. Broncos who just can't get anything going at all on offense. Up against the Titans that just have a ridiculous running game at the moment with obviously Derrick Henry. It's what a lot of people expected. But Malik Willis starting to settle in a little bit now. Kemp, I'll come to you first on this one. Myself, I'm going to go with the Titans win.
I'm going Titans as well, and I think this will try its best to fight. Try its best to fight Panthers and Falcons for the most boring game of the week, personally. But I think the Titans will run the ball down the Broncos' throat, and I think they'll come out with a fairly comfortable victory as well, Dawson.
You know what what I think about Derrick Henry? We spoke about it in the review show earlier in the week. He's in my top 3 for the MVP race in terms of what he brings. Adam, you said there about Malik Willis settling in. Not really sure what planet you're living on. He completed 5 passes at the weekend against the Chiefs. It is Derrick Henry's team. Listening to it back, credit to the defense as well, because I was talking about over the last 3 weeks, the 24 combined passes and all that kind of stuff. 2 of those games, they've limited the teams are playing to 10 points. So that will help massively. A big credit to the defense. But on offense, it's the Derrick Henry show. Nobody else is relevant. If they can block the defense, if they can let him get a bit of space, he's winning them games at the minute. So
I'm not saying Malik Willis is settling into the extent that he's going to be setting records or pulling up any trees or anything like that. I think it's more that he's starting to settle into how things are going with the Titans' offense. Yeah, a lot of it does run through Derrick Henry, if not all of it running through Derrick Henry, and he does do very minimal passing if he can, but that's him settling into it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he took a big confidence knock when he got drafted, was it 3rd, 4th round in the end, after a lot of people had him top 10, top 20 picks within the draft. So he's got to get his confidence back up again, and I think some of the plays that he's been making on the ground himself, I think shows that he's starting to settle in. And I think up against the Broncos, I think you'll really start to see a bit of a sign. So I'm going to go with him as the sort of wild card player that you're going to see this weekend, and we'll come on to that. Very big game up next, one that we can actually find a lot of entertainment in talking about. The Bills against the Vikings. We'll start with you on this one, Skin.
Well, breaking news in the last hour or so at time of recording this, Sean McDermott has come out in the press and said that Josh Allen is currently day-to-day. So if he's unable to start at the weekend, it'll be Case Keenum, the former Vikings quarterback, facing his former team. So where do we stand in terms of discussions and predictions? If it is straight up full-strength Vikings against full-strength Bills, you've got to back the Bills. Vikings have so far this season played 3 teams where they've had to play the backup quarterback because the first choice has been injured. This potentially the 4th game of this season. So, yeah, without Josh Allen, it's a bit of a closer game. I still don't know. I think the Bills are very well coached. Again, if you're forcing me to make a prediction without Josh Allen, I will go with a very close Vikings win. But assuming that Allen pulls through, he's a tough guy. He's pushed himself through injuries before. Bills take him, make Vikings go 7-2. Kempo, what about you, mate? You've got a bit of a soft spot for some of the Vikings players. Justin Jefferson, players like that, being former LSU, your college team. Where do you think they stand with playing a Bills with Allen versus a Bills without him?
I couldn't agree more. Bills with Allen is a Bills win. A Bills without is a Vikings win, in my opinion. I think Vikings, for me, have been one of the surprise packages of the NFL so far this season. They're 7-1. I'm not sure if you boys thought that the Vikings would be 7-1 after this, after the schedule that they've had. But
I can't say that I did. No, but also, not. As I mentioned already, they've played 3 teams who have had to play the backup quarterback because their first choice has been injured. So a little bit of luck in there on their side as well. But they're 7-1. They've still won games.
I understand that. I get that. But you've still got to win the game, like you say. And I do think if the Bills are full strength and the Vikings are full strength, I think the Bills, take it away. But it's going to be an interesting game regardless. And even if Allen does suit up, it's an elbow injury. It's a funny one for a quarterback especially. So Adam,
Well, as much pointed out, he can't make tonight's recording, but as much pointed out that the UCL injury is basically the equivalent of an ACL injury in the knee, and we know how much impact that can have on a player's ability to perform at full strength or perform at all. So, if it is as bad as what it's starting to look like, it might not just be a case of him missing 1 week. It could be 2 or 3, and considering the division they're in, and Jets are playing well, beat them at the weekend. Dolphins, that we just spoke about, likely to go to 7-3 this weekend. If he does miss 1, 2, maybe even 3 games, they could really be struggling to reach the playoffs by the time he comes back.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a Bills win regardless, I think. I can't see Josh Allen missing it myself. From him saying day to day, it gives me a little bit more confidence that Allen will be playing this weekend. If you saw on the last play, I know they're not going to want to aggravate it any worse, obviously heading in towards the second half of the season, but the play that he tried to make towards, I think it was Gabe Davis at the very end, that was broken up by Gardner, that was whilst he'd got that injury. And I get it's not in his throwing arm, so that helps a little bit. But I think that he'll be able to get through it regardless. I think with it being day-to-day and them saying it's day-to-day, I think he'll be able to play. If he doesn't, I still feel that I'm confident the Bills would be able to beat the Vikings. Yeah, they're 7-1, and a lot of people are surprised by that. I think Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis will still be able to give a helping hand to Keenum if he does come in. And I think that run game will still be, whilst it's not the greatest, I'd say even in the AFC East, I'd say it'll still be able to play a big part in helping them over the line against the Vikings. Moving on to the next game is the Giants against the Texans. I'm feeling that there will only be one winner in this, and I'm going to go with the Giants because the Texans are absolutely hopeless. Kemp, we'll come over to you as a Giants fan first.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the New York Giants, as you said, Adam. I think I am, again, more of a conservative Giants fan than a lot of people. I'm not getting too carried away, even though we are 6-2, but we're off the bye week. We've got Golladay back this week as well, and he's not pulled up any trees for us, but he is a top.
He hasn't planted any seeds, mate, to grow any trees. Pull any up, mate. Come on.
But I think he is a class receiver, and class is permanent. So I'm going to go the New York Giants by at least a couple of scores, which is something we've not done all season, I don't think. Dawson, what do you think?
I'm just going to keep it nice, short and sweet, and say Giants pull off another fourth quarter comeback. Texans will play better than people expect on the back of Pierce, and they will turn around a fourth quarter deficit to win another game and go 7-2.
I've just got a question to both of you, and we're going to start, Kemp, with you, because I've just picked up on with you saying their skin about Pierce. We've mentioned earlier about the Titans, it being Derrick Henry's offense. A lot of what we're talking about and a lot of what the supporters of NFL teams are talking about is how it is very much a running backs offense. Running backs are carrying teams. I mean, we've heard a couple of comments towards maybe Saquon Barkley helping out the Giants enormously. We've seen, obviously, McCaffrey was carrying the Panthers. Now he's still a very big part of the Niners, and he's only been there for 2 weeks. How much is it becoming more of a running backs league than it is reliant on the quarterback? Kemp, we'll start with you.
I don't think it is becoming more of a running backs league. I do disagree. I think that you look at the contributions of running backs such as Derrick Henry and even Saquon Barkley for the New York Giants this season has been absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, the quarterback is the most important position on the field. Everybody knows that. There's a reason the quarterbacks are earning more than anybody else on the entire field and in the game. And that's because they're the most important, the most important guys. You've not just got throwing the ball to the receivers. You've got your snap count. You've got to make sure that everybody knows where they are and what they're doing. You've got to make sure the running back's in the right decision. So I think you've got to have a capable offensive line and a capable quarterback for a running back to do anything anyway. So I do agree that some running backs are very, very important to their schemes and to their franchises, but I think it's an exception rather than a rule, to be honest, Dawson. I don't know if you agree.
I completely agree, mate. There aren't that many teams that are really, really sort of carrying themselves on the back of a running back, and yeah, I think passing yards get higher and higher, and everything else like that. Rules come in to protect the quarterbacks even more, so it will only increase in terms of becoming a passers league.
So let's just go through the rest of the weekend's fixtures in Week 10. Kemp, we'll start with you. Your prediction for the Chiefs against the Jags?
Kansas City Chiefs by a couple of scores at least. The Jacksonville Jaguars have shown a little bit of promise, but I think the Kansas City Chiefs come away with it, Dawson.
Chiefs by 21. Adam, what about you?
I'm not going to say by 21, but I'm going to agree with you on a Chiefs win. Up next, Steelers against Saints. Skin, we'll start with you on this one first.
That is a tough one because I'm not that confident in either side, to be honest, but I will go with Saints by a very late field goal. Adam, go on, mate. You have a go with this one.
I'm going to go Steelers. I say Saints is predominantly around Alvin Kamara. I think Steelers with Kenny Pickett will finally start to find some rhythm after the bye week. Kemp?
Saints by a late field goal. It's going to be a really boring game. Saints will barely come away with it, and it'll be one to forget.
There we go. Moving on to the first of the later games. Raiders against Colts. Two sides that people probably expected to be doing better than they are doing at the moment. I'll start with this one, and I'm going to say Vegas. I think the Colts just seem to be struggling way too much, and the Raiders just have too much on offense to beat them. Kemp?
I'm going to go with the Colts. They've just got rid of the head coach. Their interim coach, I think, has brought in a new play caller for the game against the Raiders. Whether that'll change things up a little bit, give the players a little bit more freedom, I'm thinking Colts. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure why, but I've just got a feeling. Dawson?
Everyone loves an underdog, mate, but Raiders by 10 for me.
There you go.
Next one, a division game in NFC West. The Rams against the Cards. Both sides off the back of defeats. I really can't call this one. Both sides look quite bad from what we've seen so far this season, but I'd probably edge it to the Cards. Skin?
First of all, I wish you'd edge me.
I knew it! I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I expected it.
You laughed before I'd finished. You'd laugh before I started.
I could have counted it down. Carry on.
Like you, Adam, it's a tough one to call, isn't it? You would have expected this at the start of the season to be an absolute prime time game of the season contender, and it might be on the day, but out of the combined 17 games, they've won 6 between them. So it would have been a small percentage of people that would have had that as a number of wins between them at this point in the season. But I'm gonna go Cards with this one. Kemp, what are you thinking, mate? Ramsey, your second team, are you backing them, or you're not really sure?
Yeah. I'm gonna go Cards. I think the Rams we discussed it before, it was win now. They won, and then since then they've looked like a shell. They've got a bit of rebuilding to do. I'm going to go Cards.
Okay, next one, Green Bay against the Dallas Cowboys. What, again, would be classed as a very big game seems to be narrowed down by the fact that Green Bay can't seem to get much offense going, and for that reason, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Kemp?
Unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys are going to take this one. I don't want to say any more on it. Dawson?
I wish Sam was here. He's still in Orlando. I'm sure if he was here to preview this game, he would have plenty to say, and I'm even more sure that when he's back and joining us, he will have plenty to say about how the Packers are getting on this season. But yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys as well.
There we go, all three for the same team. Again, moving on to 49ers against Chargers. I'm going to say this one I'm going to go with the 49ers. I don't like it, but I'm going to have to go with it because Chargers just seem to be leaking points at the moment. I think they've got a good defense, but it's not showing on the field at the minute. Skin?
Yeah, I agree, mate. 49ers, I think they're starting to play a little bit better. McCaffrey's had an extremely positive start for them. Chargers are in good form, to be fair. They've won 4 out of the last 5, and San Fran have won 3 out of the last 5, but last weekend beat the Rams convincingly. Yeah, I'll go with San Fran on this one. Kemp, what about you, mate?
I'm going 49ers as well. They've come off the bye week, giving them a chance to get a bit of rest in, rest up and get healthy for the Chargers game. It's a big game, and I think it'll be a tight game, but I think the 49ers are going to win.
A nice little NFC East game next. Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders. I'm going to go with Philadelphia, and they're going to continue that unbeaten streak. Kemp?
Yeah, Mujib, you're going to go 9-0. You're going to go 9-0. Philadelphia Eagles look unstoppable. They're gonna walk away with this one, I think, fairly comfortably. Dawson?
I agree. That's it.
We'll move on to the lock of the week now, where we'll look at a touchdown scorer and a team that you feel might surprise a couple of people this weekend. So I'll start with Chuba Hubbard. I think that when he's back from his injury, he's used predominantly from the Panthers now as a third down back. He gets a couple of receptions, but also in the short yardage, potentially to push over the line as well. I think Deontay Foreman's going to be their first choice, and with his performances since McCaffrey left, probably rightly so. But I think Hubbard at any time to get a touchdown. And looking back at the predictions we've already made, I'm going to go with the Steelers as the team. I think it's time for Pickett to pick things up and start to show the people of Pittsburgh why he was chosen when he was in the first round.
That was some impressive alliteration there.
It was lovely, wasn't it?
Thank you.
Picking it up with picks and picking. Yeah, I love it. Fantastic. Excellent.
I'll tell you what, I know what I love even more is Adam's rogueness on this whole lock of the week and pick of the week for a scorer. Like, it's meant to be who you're confident in, and Adam's having none of that, and he's going for the wild cards and the underdog. So,
but if it happens, it looks better, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Why pick the ones that everyone else is picking? I'll pick this one up and I'll go next if you don't mind, Kemp.
Yeah.
In terms of my lock of the week for the team, I'm going to go the Kansas City Chiefs over Jacksonville Jaguars. And for anytime scorer, I'm going to go for the former Stanford star Christian McCaffrey as an anytime touchdown scorer for 49ers against Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Kemp, go on then, mate. What's your pick?
Back with the alliteration there. I love that. Dallas Cowboys, sorry Sam, on my lock of the week. Absolutely no question about it. The Cowboys have just got way too much for a gun-shy Green Bay Packers at this moment in time. In terms of a touchdown scorer, I think there's a plethora of touchdown scorers you can.
You had to get it in, didn't you?
Had to get it in.
Just an FYI and a little bit of an insight to all the listeners out there. Plethora is one of, if not Kemp's favourite word, so that's why I had to pick up on him having to force it in there.
It's not forced. It's absolutely.
It fit, mate. It's fine.
Absolutely perfect.
But you went into that sentence thinking, I'm going to get plethora in here.
Yeah, no, you might be right on that one. I'm going to go with a. It's difficult, like I say, because there's just so many opportunities and people that I think are going to get touchdowns. But I think Saquon Barkley is going to get a touchdown this week, and this is probably me with heart more than head. I think Saquon Barkley is a lock to get a touchdown against the Texans, Adam.
So for locks of the week, then we've got a Chiefs, Steelers, and Cowboys treble, and for the anytime touchdown treble, we have got Hubbard, CMC and Barkley. So if anyone fancies that, either of those is a little bit of a trouble. I think both will have a pretty tasty price on that. But Ag, I'll let you finish up, mate. That's everything for this week. So close us off.
Yep. Thank you everybody for listening. That wraps up our first preview show here on Loaded Sport. Skin, where can everybody find us on social media?
They can find us if you search for Loaded Sport on Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. Give us a like, a subscribe, should I say, and a follow. At Loaded Sport on Twitter. Again, give us a follow and like and retweet any of our posts, trailers, episode postings, that kind of stuff. And on Instagram at loaded_sport. We'll put some clips up, some reels up, all the usual stuff, and just try and give everyone a bit of an insight into what a full episode looks like. So again, any likes, any shares, any recommendations to friends that you know sport will be much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for listening, and keep an eye out for the next one next week with the World Cup preview as well.